It's time for the MotoAmerica AMA FIM North American Road Race Championship, our sixth round of 9 for 2024. This round is MotoAmerica Superbike Speed Fest at Monterey from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca in California. In our 10th anniversary year of MotoAmerica, Supersport Race number 1 under the California sunshine is teed up. And boy, what a championship we have. Welcome everyone to the broadcast. And welcome to California. I'm Greg White, standing alongside two-time national champ Jason Pridmore. Now, Jason, this championship has been a two-horse race for the last couple race weekends, but then something big happened the last time we were at the Ridge in race number 2.
Yeah, we definitely did. Matthews, Colson, PJ Jacobsen have really dominated the year, as you have seen by the big points gap they have over third place. But at the Ridge, they got a little close, some good, tight, hard racing, and now you can see where the standings are today.
So it's 219 to 191 points. When we got to the Ridge race number 2, it was advantage Sculpt's 3 points. But then in an incident with PJ, it's now 28 points, and you can see Jake Lewis and Ty Scott. But Jay, let's go back to the incident in the last race of the Ridge.
Yeah, Matthew kind of, with 2 laps to go, finally got up to the back of PJ, and when they went into turn 10 up there, you can see there was contact made. It felt really bad for PJ. It didn't almost seem fair that he got no points from that. But like I said, Greg, we want good hard racing at the front. That was a hard race move. Matthew made a pass up underneath PJ, and just happened that they got together, and the next thing you know, PJ's on the ground. And like I said, it was just a shame he couldn't pick the bike up and get some sort of points there, but that's why we have 28 points now that he's got to make up.
We have an 18-race championship. There's still 8 to go, but there's a lot of stories, and joining us now is the third member of our broadcast team who's on the grid, Hannah Lopa.
Charging into the second half of this season, Corey Alexander starting from the front row today. Some quick lap times. How easily are they coming for you?
Nothing's easy for a big guy on a little bike. I keep talking about it, but for sure, you know, we were trying stuff even this morning. We cut my foot pegs down to try to gain some ground clearance. So, you know, honestly, the whole Real Ducati Moto team has done a phenomenal job to make the bike work really well. A lot of it's just battling my size, but yeah, otherwise, looking forward to this race. Having 2 of our bikes up here on the front row is really cool, and you know, just gonna make the most of it. It's gonna be a battle.
Best of luck, Corey. Thank you. Starting one position farther back on the grid from Corey Alexander is none other than Blake Davis. The last couple of rounds, we've seen Blake really kind of struggle to find his speed, but he is going fast again. Blake, what is it that's made the difference for you here this weekend?
Yeah, I think I just loosened up a lot more, decided to come out here and enjoy it again. Put a little bit too much stress on myself in these last few rounds, but I'm out here and having a blast and hoping to make my way up front.
Best of luck out there. Fun is key for Blake Davis, guys.
Well, really, Jason, it's the key for a lot of people, isn't it?
Well, I think when you're young and you've put some great results in, you've won a couple championships, the expectations go higher. I like what Blake said there. As you get a good look here, Greg, at WeatherTech Laguna Seca. Unbelievable track. As we know, the world-famous Corkscrew. Turn 1 always catches your attention. Turns 3 and 4, very flat. Head up that big hill out of turn 6. People are always amazed by how steep that is. Then you got the big drop through the Corkscrew, in through Rainy Corner, turn 9 there. Very banked turn 10. 11, turn 11 there at the end. We've seen a lot of things happen there. And then it's kind of a long run down to that start-finish line, Greg. So got to make your plans around Laguna Seca. Not really any place to rest. Been around for a long time.
It's very physically demanding here, and it was repaved last year, but it's got some bumps. But hey, if you're an old fan of motorcycle road racing, yeah, don't blink. That is Larry Pegram. The Worm is back in action. He's on the grid. He's had 5 Superbike race wins in his career. What's he going to do today? Well, we get the race going in 5.
Continuing coverage here from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. It is a packed grid down there, Roger. Looking back at the notes from last season, the Supersport race here, it was an endurance race. It was 38 laps. In terms of bringing the notebook out to take a look at getting ready for what will be a shorter race today, just 19 laps. How does that change things?
I think it changes, you know, the tire and what the bike feels like at the end of that 18 lap, 19 laps. So, but you can go back to that notebook and see where you started and where your speed was. You know, if your bike, you showed up, you were fast, you can go back and look at that and see what you did to the bike and try to go back to that setting. But as far as the race itself, being that endurance race, it's not exactly the same as far as race distance.
Saw Stefano Mesa there on the grid, getting himself ready, qualified 10th today. Such a great pack of fans that have come out here this weekend to watch their favorite riders and learn possibly about MotoAmerica competition.
Yeah, it's just great to see that the motorhomes and the hills packed. again. I mean, all the races this year have just been crazy with the fans, how big it is. And look at all the Harleys down there. Just so many different displays. It's just really great to see. Look at all those bikes. And it's been years since I've seen that many bikes down there on the inside of the track through there. So it's just great to see. And, MotoAmerica is growing, and there's the proof right there.
Yeah, road racing here in North America on two wheels, certainly in a solid place right now. 5 different categories here at WeatherTech Raceway this weekend. Over 150 riders looking to try and find themselves into that podium celebration area this weekend. You can see all of the bikes that the fans have brought out as well as we go back to the grid right now.
See, Kayla, she's podium last race, and still this weekend's carried it over. She's, down there in 8th, but that is just where she needs to be. She's really fast. She's close to the leaders. It wasn't just a one-time thing. She proved coming here this weekend, and she proved that the ridge, even though she's in 8th, her lap time, she proved it wasn't a fluke. And for her, backing up what she did has been huge. Talks about she struggles at this track, and she comes here, and she's really fast.
Yeah, for Kayla, she was very honest in her expectations for the rest of the season, saying we have to be realistic here. This isn't about going out and going for a championship title. This is a year of learning. It's a year of growing. It's a year of developing. And Kayla has taken that on her shoulders, and she has done just that with her head down. She's earned a ton of respect from all of the riders that are out there on the Supersport grid.
Yeah, and you see her. I mean, she's in 8th, but she's only 8/10 off the best lap time. So she's right there. And, your rookie year, there's always going to be peaks and valleys. And she's going to go through them. But right now, you just think about, she's only 8/10 off. This class is so competitive. It's so stacked. It's so elevated. Everybody's talking about it. 8/10 will get you down in 8th place.
You saw Matthew Skoltz there on the number 11. He's starting in the middle of that front row, qualified second, under 0.3 of a second behind our pole sitter. You see there the number 15 just coming into the frame. That's PJ Jacobson. You see the number 22, Blake Davis, there on the second row, and then Corey Alexander, that orange Ducati, also finishing out the front row. Full field. There are 32 riders that qualified for the Supersport racing here this weekend. You can see the teams have all moved off of the grid area. The horns are blowing. That means we are getting closer to this warm-up lap. It's going to be Greg White and Jason Pridmore, as well as Hannah Lopa, that will have the call of the Supersport race. So Roger and I are going to step aside. We're going to watch along with you. It's time for Supersport.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is brought to you by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
Central California, absolutely spectacular. As the riders in Supersport have made their way to their warm-up lap, we have a 19-lap affair on deck here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. And boy, Jason Pridmore, this one's going to be very interesting. We have a rider that's stopped on the track.
That is weird.
Is that one of the
it looks like an
vision wheel? Yeah, the vision wheel M4 start. That's Ty Scott.
It is Ty Scott. So Ty Scott has got a problem, and you can see the bike has still got a problem. You can see him kind of messing with some things there. And
he put his hand up initially when we came right back from break, Jay. You could see that he had his hand up. He was towards the front of the field, and he had to pull off to the side. So hopefully for him, he's on the warm-up lap, which is good. He's just got to, if his bike is set right, there's something wrong with it. He's going to be pulling in.
He's trying to get the thing up to speed a little bit, and he just can't. So,
well, let's see where Ty Scott and the rest of the field are going to start after qualifying, Jay.
PJ Jacobson's on pole with Matthew Skoltz, Corey Alexander, who we just heard from, along with Blake Davis. Blake, Jake Lewis, and Gerardo are going to be there on row number 2, row 3. Ty Scott, if he can make it back around, let's see if they can get that thing sorted. Yakov and Tamburini with a solid qualifying again. Mesa, David Anthony, and Torrin Collins. Nice to see Torrin come back from Canada after racing some super bikes. Max Van, Aiden Sneed, and Brendan Kettleson. Northern Cal AFM guy. Teague Hobbs, Jarrett Nassani, and Enriquez there on row 6. A little further back, Soltis, Larry Pagram. Love seeing that. Next to Owen Williams. And then you got CJ LaRose, DeLeon, and Greg on row number 8. Going a little further back, we got a full grid, Greg. Chase Black, Tropkov, and Ullman. And then we have Jorge Aristine, Jeremy Taubman, and Ricci. And that's our grid. So, yeah, perfect weather. I know you got here early. You said it was nice, and then the fog rolled in, and now we're back to good weather. And
very typical here in Central.
Coming into the pits.
Yeah, so Ty Scott, you're 4th in points in the championship.
Just a horrendous year for this guy so far. Just nothing.
Bad luck.
Nothing's been easy for him, has it? Nothing's been easy for him.
Well, he's had one race win. Obviously, that one was good. It was a drag race by what?
Nothing.
10,000th of a second.
Yeah. So you see that empty spot there on the 3rd row.
But here we go. It's Supersport race number 1. 19 laps scheduled, and the front row gets away pretty cleanly. Corey Alexander on the inside. He's looking for position, as it looks like it's going to be PJ Jacobson that might lead us into turn 1. Blake Davis trying to go around the outside on his Yamaha will slide into 3rd place.
PJ outbroke himself a little bit there, so Matthew Schultz sneaks back up along the inside. PJ's going to try to straight line it into 3. He's not going to make it. Blake Davis on the other Yamaha trying to make a move there. You're right, Greg. He did get a great start, did Blake? We have a rider down in turn 3 in the background there. But Matthew Schultz, this is what people don't want to see, is it's Owen Williams and Torrin Collins look like they have crashed in turn 3 together.
Trying to dig themselves out of the gravel trap, and Blake Davis a little bit wide into turn number 5. He's going to lose at least 2 positions as they head up to turn number 6. But Strack Racing on the Yamaha R6. Matthew Schultz looking great right now out front.
And all of a sudden, look what you got again. You got Ray Hall Ducatis, it looks like, Greg, in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Let's not forget, Kayla Yakov puts it on the podium twice at the Ridge, has a good solid qualifying here. She saw that pace at the Ridge and saw what these guys can run, and now it's transferred right over here to Laguna Seca. So for any of you out there rooting for Kayla, she's already found herself in 4th, right behind her teammate Corey Alexander and PJ Jacobson.
The Vision Wheel M4 XR Suzuki team trying to figure out what's going on with Ty Scott's bike to try to get him back out and get him valuable lap time. One of the things we have here in MotoAmerica competition is 2 races per weekend. So any information you can get, even though Ty Scott wasn't able to start this race, is going to be valuable information.
Well,
and another rider off the track
is down in turn 11. That's a shame. I know they've been putting a lot of effort into getting Brendan here for this race. So for the NorCal native up by Sacramento, Brendan is down, and you can see that Owen didn't get back in the race. His bike's still laying in the gravel in turn 3. And the front 2, Greg, shocker, right? They're starting to pull away. So PJ does not want to let Matthew get out of his sights. You're going to see in the left-hand side of your screen here, Brendan Kettleson just loses the front, Greg. We've seen that a million times here at Laguna Seca.
Slowest corner on the racetrack, Jay, and that's what we often see. And it looks like
another bike. Is that Nassani?
That's Jarrett Nassani is down as well. So Jarrett Nassani on the Altus Motorsports GSXR 750. But back up front we go. PJ Jacobson on that Ray Hall Ducati Moto with Expel, just ahead of his teammate Corey Alexander. And for Alexander is on the Ray Hall Ducati Moto with Roller Die and Forming. So again, Jason, we talked about it if you missed it last week. When Matthew Schultz took over the championship lead after race 1 at Ridge, it was the first time since Supersport Next Generation bikes have been allowed in the class that the Ducati V2 has not led the championship. The old can't win them all.
That's a pretty wild stat. As you see Dave Anthony a little further back trying to battle his way through a couple of MV Augustas. How about Aiden Sneed up in 9th place on an MV? Good job from him with his teammate just behind him. In 10th is Tamburini. So these riders go up over the top. You can see Corey Alexander now. People are starting to queue up behind him. Hannah, what do you got on Ty Scott?
I checked in with Chloe, the team's data engineer, and she told me that they were having a problem with the electronic throttle. The team made quick work of swapping that out, but unfortunately Ty was unable to rejoin the race, and they wheeled the bike off pit lane. A very frustrating day for Ty Scott.
Yeah, and the frustrating part about that, Greg, is something I think you were starting to allude to earlier, is just getting those laps in today so that if you want to make any changes for tomorrow, those are laps that he's not going to get now.
And the battle for 3rd is heating up with number 19. That's Kayla Yakov on the Ray Hall Ducati Moto with Expel. So she's chasing down her teammate. So right now we have the Strack Racing Yamaha R6 leads away from 3 teammates in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th with Blake Davis chasing. And by the way, betting is now available for MotoAmerica fans. Go to nxtbets.com/playma. nxtbets.com/playma. For more information, visit MotoAmerica.com or scan that code right there. So Supersport race number 1. 16.5 laps to go. This is the battle for the lead between Matthew Schultz and PJ Jacobson. We're going to the stripe now, but PJ had set the fastest lap of the race, chasing down Skoltz at a 27.247. Now they come across, and Skoltz goes fastest lap of the race at 127.2. PJ betters it 0.2 quicker at a 127 flat.
Yeah, and then you got this huge battle for third. I think it's a good rebound for PJ. It looked like Matthew was trying to sprint away there for a minute. And so now it's going to be a thing where Matthew knows he can't scream it away from PJ. How does his race strategy start to work out? Corey Alexander tried to go with those two initially. Now he's kind of getting into the clutches of Kayla and Blake Davis. Jake Lewis, who we've talked about being third in points, and Gerardo just behind with Mesa also. So you got from third to eighth are pretty well covered by a blanket, and these two are still running up front.
Hannah?
For Matthew Skoltz, he told me he may not have the quickest lap times overall the rest of the field, but he feels like his bike will be able to be the most consistent over such a long race distance. He did say PJ's really good in that final sector, so he doesn't want to leave it down to the last lap. He's going to try and make a break for it if he thinks that he can.
Yeah, and that's, you know, around Laguna you can come up with a lot of different strategies. And the other thing about this place, I think, Greg, is a lot of riders tend to override at this track. Getting into a rhythm at Laguna and having a bike that works well is something that you want here. Obviously, you want that at any track. And we've really seen this R6 for the last couple of rounds work tremendously well. The bike doesn't really move around much underneath Matthew. He always seems like he can put it anywhere he wants. And but like you say, like he says, looking at that second half of the lap is going to be key as both riders go across again at 27.1s.
So playing it patiently, there's the battle for third as it continues to rage on. And it's starting to close up for the riders behind. Jake Lewis on the 85 machine, Altus Motorsports. At 6'4" and 200 pounds. Talk about Corey Alexander being a big rider. At least Corey doesn't have as much weight difference as you do with Jake Lewis. There's about a 30-pound difference between the two. Both of them coming in, though, about the same height at 6'4". But boy, man, you can see how large that Corey Alexander looks on the very slim Ducati V2.
Blake looking like he wants to try to take a shot there. Wasn't quite able to make that pass on Kayla as they ran into turn 5. He looked in turn 2 a little bit earlier as well. Kayla looked like she ran a little wide in 2, and he had thoughts about it. But now you kind of wonder what's going to happen between these two. Is PJ going to sit on him the whole race and just kind of wait? The one thing I think PJ is going to recognize really early, if the contact at the ridge didn't already convince him, he's going to know that Matthew wants to win, at all costs. And if PJ goes through or shows something early, Matthew's going to be aware of that, and he's going to try to take a shot directly back. I
did notice there coming down the hill, Jason, through Rainey, that as P.J. Jacobsen got on the throttle, there was a little bit of movement from the rear end. You can see it there as well. I don't know if that's the way it's been since the beginning or if that's signs of that rear tire starting to spin up for him. There's no electronic traction control like you have on your street bikes available for the Ducati Panigale V2 race bike. It's available for the Yamaha R6J, but in speaking with Ed Sullivan, the crew chief for Matthew Skoltz, I asked him about the traction control, and he said, we don't use any of it even if it's available. Matthew wants every single bit of power available in the R6 at his disposal at all times, and so they do not use traction control.
And you know, that thing is that's coming off of a super bike. You know, you get used to having so much power underneath you, and you still have to modulate it and respect that power, even though you've got electronics helping you control that on a big fast super bike. As Kayla now, she looks up the inside of Corey Alexander, is going to make that pass. That could help Blake as well. Let's see if Blake outruns. No, he's not quite able to get up alongside Corey there, so Corey gets passed by his teammate as they roll off here into turn 6, getting back to close that Matthews statement off. Greg, I think when you come off of a big bike like that and you jump on something like this, it's like a toy for him, isn't it? So he can modulate it and get used to running that thing on the edge of the tire.
In addition to that, Jay, I'll add that, you know, when you look at the total adjustability of a super bike, when you look at what's available to adjust on a super bike versus a super sport bike, it's more of a simple puzzle as we have a rider down in the gravel trap.
I'm trying to see who that is. Is it number 12, Greg? So Enriquez, I think it is, that might be down. I'm just trying to see where that could possibly be. But it looks like bike number 12 is down.
Yeah, that's Enriquez on the 3D Motorsports GSX-R 750.
So we see a 6.9 now out of PJ that lap, 7 flat for Matthew. And just to keep you kind of an idea of the class that these two have over everybody else, it's a 6-second lead already, Greg, after 6 laps. So they're pulling away a second a lap from the people behind them as you see them go 28-2, 28-2. That's Kayla and Blake Davis, who did make his way through on Corey Alexander, who's been dropped now to 5th.
Jason, I just keep seeing PJ just struggling to find grip and accelerate with Matthew Skultz as the rear tire continues to spin. So for Kayla, Yakov, the number 19, and Blake Davis, number 22, on the NC Racing bobblehead moto Yamaha R6. These two racing it up, and you can see them starting to pull away from Corey Alexander.
Yeah, this is a place for Corey that's going to be really difficult with all the big uphills and things that you see here. It requires that hill going up the back there. It just requires horsepower and speed, and it's difficult for Corey and Jake, to be honest with you, like you said earlier. And then they'll do a little bit better on the run down here into turn 11. You can see Corey can kind of get back up onto the back of the two in front. Blake Davis looks like he's trying to line up a pass on Kayla as they went into turn 11. As we get back to our leaders, Matthew's got a couple of red splits up on the board, but ultimately he would go 27-0. How about sector 4 there? They did red splits between the two of them all the way through the lap. They just didn't all do it in one spot.
Red splits, of course, indicate to us the fastest split of this session. In this case, it's this race, Supersport Race number 1. Kayla Yakov, though, and Blake Davis into the 27.7 range after they got by Corey Alexander, dipped back to the 28 flats. Now these two had gone 26.968 and 26.97 a lap ago, and that 26.97 is PJ Jacobsen on lap number 5, credited with the fastest lap of the race so far. Back to the battle for third. And you can see Corey Alexander, Jason, hard on the brakes in turn number 5. How about Tytler Cycles on that Kawasaki ZX6R, Stefano Mesa, the fastest Kawasaki in the bunch right now, and he's holding on to the back of that field with 11.5 laps to go in Supersport Race number 1. Kayla Yakov in third place. Looking good, Hannah.
She is, and you'd never know by watching her right now. This is one of the tracks that she struggles at a bit. She's also had some bad luck here. In 22, she got taken out. 23, she had a mechanical. She said it's really hard to get a good, clean lap here, so she really wants to focus on stringing her best sectors together. She does have good race pace, and she really wanted to stay with these front guys, but she's trying to keep the rest of this battle for third behind her, as it looks like Blake Davis is still trying to make the pass on her.
Yeah, she's doing a good job holding off the rest of the field, Jay, but one of the things that we know about WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is when we come here, we often talk about this track being a technical racetrack. Can you give us a little bit more insight as to what that would mean?
There's just not a lot of places to rest, and with it, she's in deep here, Greg. She's into turn 2, really deep, and she might still be able to square this up and not lose this spot. If she goes, no, Blake's going to get her. Oh, is she going to go back up underneath him? Yeah, that's what I thought she might be able to do. All she needed was another half of a wheel there, and she'd have made it. It's very technical in the sense that if you mess up a turn here, Greg, it's very difficult to get yourself directly back online. As you can see, these are flat corners, turn 3 and 4. As Corey now looks like he wants to take a shot as they go down into turn 5. He's going to go up underneath Kayla, and Jake Lewis is going to do it. So this is a tough lap for Kayla right now. She makes one little mistake, and now Gerardo looks like he is trying to do the same, and he's going to make it up underneath Kayla in turn 6. So she makes one little mistake. You're asking me about technical?
Yeah, that's
makes
the point.
One little mistake in turn 2, and look what happens. This is what happens. It's about that rolling momentum around Laguna. Getting into a rhythm here can be difficult, and it's very easy for people to break up that rhythm, and you just saw it as a prime example right when you asked me that question.
And these corners link to each other,
That's
and
correct.
it's just so critical to get that done. It looks like Kayla might be having some sort of an issue, because for a moment there it looked like Mesa was going to go up the inside of her. Mesa trying to go sideways, but Kayla now in a position really with 8 laps to go to gather it back up, close the gap, and try to march forward again.
And this is how mature this young lady is. If she does not have a problem with this bike, you watch. She's just going to regroup. She's going to get on the back of these guys again. She's going to race forward, and you watch. She'll start trying to do what she did early in this race, just start picking people off. I mean, she went through a couple of guys to get herself in a good spot early, and now let's see if the 19 can regroup. That lap that she just ran there, Greg, was a 29.8. So it was almost 2 seconds slower than the guy in third, 28.0 Blake Davis. So let's see if Kayla can regroup and start getting on the back of those guys.
So Blake Davis now holds on to third place. All the while up the road, it's Matthew Skultz continuing to lead PJ Jacobsen by 0.2 of a second. 0.4 of a second you can see on the left part of your screen. And this battle is 9.8 seconds behind those two. And Jason, that's really what happens when you have racing this tight in Supersport. One little mistake like that on a racetrack as technical as WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is, and you lose that kind of time and you're losing that kind of positions. If it was just 2 or 3 of them battling, she may have only lost 1 position. Now here come the leaders as they go through lap traffic into turn number 11. Onto the straightaway we go, and it looks like Matthew Schultz is starting to eke out a little bit more of an advantage as we come across the stripe. It's 26.813 for Schultz as he puts the hammer down, and he goes fastest lap of the race. 10 laps into this affair.
And PJ still had the fastest last split. So, and to your point now, look at that bike moving around under PJ even more so now. We are very used to seeing PJ being able to ride this bike. Another mistake there in turn 3. That's going to give Matthew more of a gap. So for PJ, you can see it moving around early grip-wise, and it's just continuing to kind of get worse. And the 11 of Matthew Schultz's bike, it still looks pretty solid underneath him. And, you know, Matthew right now, 22.4, gains half a second, Greg, just in the first split alone. So he's just got his head down, trying to put the pressure on PJ by leading at the front and just continuing to hit his marks.
All right, Jason, I had a long talk with Ed Sullivan, of course, who is Matthew Schultz's crew chief, and has been since Matthew landed here in the United States. A lot of people don't know, in the 9 years that Schultz has been here, Ed has been with him every team, every lap, except one practice or one test session earlier on this year. It's been every single time. So when I asked Ed about the progression of Matthew Schultz going from Superbike back to Supersport, I asked him, what are the critical components you see to the success of Matthew? Obviously, he talked about the window of setting up the R6 and how critical an R6 is as a Supersport bike to get right on the chassis side of things, meaning the geometry and everything else. But the biggest thing, Jay, is on a Superbike, as you know, you want to get through the corner and you want to get it up on the meat of the tire and use that big 1000cc motor to drive to the next corner. On these little bikes, especially the R6, if you lift it up too quickly onto the meat of the tire, then you're not going to be able to drive because you actually lose RPM. And Ed Sullivan said that the biggest thing for Matthew is he gets it, he understands it, and when you watch him lift the bike up from this lean angle back up to straight, he's doing it in a very gradual way and using the max amount of torque and RPM and horsepower available out of the R6.
Yeah, you brought up that conversation yesterday with Ed that you had, and it was a great message that you told me that Matthew's doing, especially since the fact that he does do it very slow, very gradual. Even up here, you can see him holding on to the edge of that tire as he goes up the hill out of turn 6. PJ's kind of got that gap, and he's managing it at the moment. He goes fast the second split, but only just. He lost 0.2 in the first, gained a 10th back in the second, gained a 10th back here in the third. PJ's on a strong lap. 8 laps to go. He's starting to kind of piece it back together, it looks like, is PJ. But to your point, that goes back to what you said earlier, Greg, about coming from a Superbike to a Supersport machine. Wow, PJ's got that thing backed in awful tight going into the last corner. Let's have a little bit further back. Blake Davis now has a bit of a gap on Corey Alexander and Jake Lewis and Gerardo. I see Mesa. We have lost Kayla from this group in the sense that she has fallen way back. So maybe, just maybe, Greg, she did have a little bit of a problem. But now it looks like Blake Davis, who's come in here and just said to Hannah early on, he's here to have fun again. Just try to go out and enjoy yourself. Go out and try to do your best that you can. Still going to have some problems, I think, from these two possibly behind him. But with 7 to go, we'll see if Blake can hold these guys up. Corey sideways.
Sideways. So much talent on the edge of the tire, Corey Alexander, and he just showed it right there as he sent it sideways, trying to get a drive and not lose any ground. And of course, he has got a very, very fast at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca Jake Lewis right behind him. Jake Lewis running 3 classes this weekend.
He is, isn't he? Yeah.
Hooligans.
That's right.
Christian King of the Baggers and this class. And Jake Lewis has been extremely quick. And of course, we know Lewis, who's finished on the podium a couple times in Supersport this season on the Altus Motorsports machine, has had a great run this year. So Corey Alexander still returning from injury, Jay. And I asked Corey about his fitness. I said, give me a percentage of are you back? And he said, I'm 100%. He said the most difficult thing for him at the Ridge was how hard do I push, because in his mind he was like, I just don't want to fall again and re-injure everything that I just rehabbed. And he said, but every lap that goes by, I'm doing a better job at it. As PJ Jacobson up front, Jason just goes 1:26.590. 2 laps ago, and that was the fastest lap of the race. So PJ, still pushing hard out front behind Matthew Schultz.
Lost a couple tenths this lap, but you're exactly right. 2 laps ago, went almost 2 tenths quicker as a fast lap. I don't see him here. I was looking up the road. I was trying to look for the leaders. Might have been a back marker I saw. The leaders have gone through the first split, 22.3, 22.5 as we look back again at these guys. Corey Alexander just runs his personal best lap of the race at a 27.675. So again, still, these guys are still circulating at a second or so off what the front guy is doing at the front. 26.7 for Matthew Schultz that last time by 27.6 for Blake Davis.
And let's not forget, just up the road from number 37 Mesa, we haven't talked much about him. That's Maxi Girardo on the 161. Girardo, of course, in his 3rd appearance this season, Barber race number 1, was on the podium, and he was a flash at the beginning of the season. Last couple rounds for the Top Pro Racing number 161 had been struggling slightly, but Jay, now it seems like Girardo has found the magic again on that EasyHealthPlans.com Top Pro Racing GSXR 750.
Yeah, and I love seeing this again. Top Pro has been such a great addition to our paddock here at MotoAmerica, and to see him lead the way he did at Barber, I think it kind of set an expectation. We saw him run really well at Daytona. We saw him run obviously tremendous at Barber. And then the last couple of rounds have been a little bit more difficult for him. But this is another place. I think he's been here before, Greg, to Laguna Seca. So for Max, this is a good result. He's kind of mixing it up with the guys that we'd expect him to be doing that with. So he's battling there hard in 6th place at the moment. Got a solid top 5 sitting right in front of him if he can try to close up to the back of Jake Lewis. But he's also got to be careful because Mesa's still lurking back there in 7th.
And looking down our leaderboard, there's a fierce battle between teammates. Back in 10th place, Tamburini and Sneed getting after it back there. And the Worm Watch, Larry Pegram in 15th place, and possibly one single championship point for Larry Pegram. He's back there battling it out, the 51-year-old back in action. And for Pegram fans, in a month's time, we're going to Mid-Ohio, and he's going to be racing there too, so get your tickets now. But for 3rd place, the last spot on the podium.
Wow, Corey's in there deep.
Oh, he is in there deep.
He was in there deep.
And you see how he had to slow down, and that gave Blake Davis that couple bike length gap, and now that's opened up the possibility for Jake Lewis. But see, being a technical racetrack and linking these corners together, that's one section coming through the Corkscrew where you can have a bit of a bobble and then gain it back together as you come down the hill for the rest of those corners, heading down the hill through turns 9, 10, and into 11. Onto the front straightaway we go. And now we have, sorry, Jay, 3 laps to go, and the gap is now 1/10 of a second.
1/10 of a second, yeah, you can see up there in the front. And these guys right now, look at this. Corey right now, Blake rather, 27.6 for him and Jake Lewis, and Corey threw a 27.8 there. The pace for these 3 was getting faster for them personally, as you can see here. Our leaders now, Greg, have definitely got into some lap traffic. You can see the people behind them. Those are going to be lappers that they've made it through. But PJ now has closed up right to the back. And you can see here, looks like Tropkov actually goes off into the Corkscrew.
Oh, man.
Gets his arm up. That's all right. Matthew probably was able to see that pretty easily up ahead of him. So Tropkov makes a mistake at the top of the Corkscrew. Leaders kind of get through him, no problem. But PJ has really closed this gap. And now you wonder if PJ's already got a spot lined up where he's thinking about going through on Matthew.
Look, it could have been a situation too for PJ where he felt the tire start to spin up around lap number 5 and started to say, okay, I'm just gonna, oh, you can see him sliding onto the straightaway there, but it's just typical for him.
Yeah, it's typical. I really don't read a lot into it. He's still driving the bike forward. He's still capable of doing the lap times, but now he's got to try to come up with a spot. Like, where is he picking to try to make a surprise attack on Matthew Schultz? And I think that one of the spots that it could be, if he can get close enough out of 6 up that hill, he should be able to maybe get up in behind Matthew and try to do something with him in the Corkscrew.
It looks like the Yamaha R6 is a little bit more nimble coming through the final part of the Corkscrew and getting down the hill. So for PJ, it would make a lot of sense. If he can just put Matthew behind him, he's going to be able to control his pace down the hill after the Corkscrew.
You see there how he was kind of in the draft and he kind of sat up. He got close enough to Matthew. Right now, he's close enough to where Matthew is going to be able to hear him. But I feel like it's got to be, if he doesn't hear, wow, that's a huge pass. That's a big pass. To do it there and to do it as early as he's done it, now he's going to have to really run because Matthew will try to attack right back. And for PJ, he's going to have to really try to put his head down and get this next lap or so. Try to pull the pin here, Greg. It looks like he's trying to do that. Matthew's going to follow him for a lap or so, and then he's going to try to pick his spot where he might be able to try to get through on that 15.
Pass for the lead with 2.5 laps to go through the final sector, WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. We should see the white flag as PJ Jacobsen through turn 11 drives that Ducati Panigale V2 onto the front straightaway with lap traffic in front of him. Could PJ have played this to perfection? Just waited to see what his tires are going to do and then made his move late in this race. There's still a lot to go as PJ sliding the bike sideways through turn 2A into 2B, and out they go.
But you can see it in turn 11, and you can see it in turn 2 there. As you look on the left-hand side of our screen, this is the pass for the lead. For the viewers at home that have never been to Laguna Seca, that is the wildest place to try to make a pass. It's very one line through there. It's blind on the entry. You can't see it before you go up that big hill. But for PJ, very, very defensive in 11, very defensive into turn 2. He opens up turn 5 a little bit more, so this is a spot where PJ feels his bike works its best. He has his head down as they go up to turn 6 where he made that pass a lap ago, and he is definitely stretching that gap out, Greg, on Matthew Schultz at the moment. Look, he's probably got, what, 10 good bike lengths, I'd say, as they head up into the Corkscrew.
What a masterfully played race for PJ Jacobsen on that Ray Hall Ducati Moto with Expel machine. 28 points back in the championship, trying to close that gap down to within 1 race win. This win would take him to 23 back, and he's got a lap and a couple of corners to go for the number 15.
And this is what he's got to do, just get those 5 points chunks back at it, you know, as he can. But see, by him going in so tight there, Matthew can open up the radius of that turn and actually roll through it a little quicker and actually catch him a little. And so for PJ, it's going to be a nice little move that he'll be able to do on the last lap. And he goes tight here into turn 2 as well. You can see him. He gets the bike tipped in real early. The bike backs in. Matthew's going to, Matthew made a big mistake there. So look at PJ dead sideways on the exit. But he's not going to know now that Matthew made that mistake. Really, PJ's just got to be clean for the rest of this lap. If he's clean, he's got this one in the bag.
He's heard Matthew Schultz and the screaming high RPMs of the Yamaha R6 as PJ Jacobsen has played this race to perfection. And the last time they came by the stripe, JP, they were 1/10 of a second each off of their fastest laps of the race. What a testament to the Dunlop tires here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca to be able to go that fast this late in the race, even with rear tires spinning, is incredible. Matthew Schultz answered as best he could, but it's that mistake down into turn number 2 that's created this gap. And PJ, as he gets through the corkscrew,
you can hear him backing it in. And for Matthew right now is thinking, okay, I got to get these 20 points and put them in my pocket. And for PJ, again, he's not going to be aware right now of the gap he has. He'll probably go into turn 11 pretty defensive, thinking that Matthew might still be there. As you see, he keeps it over to the left-hand side of the track and does exactly that. Keeps it mid-track on the entry. He's on his way to victory here at Laguna.
PJ Jacobsen out of the final corner for Supersport race number 1. Will take the checkered flag and his 4th victory in Supersport in 2024. Matthew Schultz comes across the line in 2nd, a 7/10 margin of victory.
Oh, wow.
And look at the gap that 22 Blake Davis has been able to create. And for Blake Davis, 5th in this championship, he's going to come across the line and stand on the podium in 3rd. And for Jake Lewis, he comes across the stripe in 4th. Maxi Girardo, Corey Alexander faded to 6th. Mesa in 7th. As we still await the arrival of Kayla Yakov, she's in a solid 8th place after running so close to the front early on. David Anthony on the number 25 machine. So for David Anthony on that Wrench Motorcycles GSXR 750, not feeling himself this weekend, a great top 10 result. Roberto Tamburini in 10th place, and the 16-year-old Aiden Sneed in 11th, with Teague Hobbs, Carl Sotis, and Max Van rounding out your top 14. As we continue to look at what's happening on the checkered flag, on the left part of your screen is the lap progression. That 26.590, fastest lap of the race on lap number 12 for PJ Jacobsen. What a run he has had. When we get back, we're going to talk to PJ and find out how his race strategy paid off.
We continue coverage here on MotoAmerica Live. Plus, PJ Jacobsen earning this win today, Roger.
Yeah, and that's how you fight back the way PJ did there. It looked like with about 5 to go that Matt kind of had things under control, but PJ was able to pull the pin in the last 2 laps, get back into the 26s. And big win for PJ. You know he's got to be feeling pretty good about that. And he's been fast all week, and he's put in a lot of laps, and he was just able to maintain the pace a little bit longer than Matt and come in here and get that win.
We were watching the race up here. You were looking at the timing and scoring. You were watching that gap fall between Matthew Skoltz and PJ Jacobsen with about 5 laps to go. You said PJ's coming. He's closing it down.
Yeah, you just see the lap times when he picked it up, just a couple tenths here or there. And then Matt got into the 27s, and PJ was able to close that down. And what a pass that PJ put on. You don't see a lot of passes through there out of turn 5, running into turn 6. If you've raced here, this corner is sketchy. It's got a big G out right there in the middle. PJ was able to get that run, and that's one of those passes where you got to be aggressive, and it's a tough pass, and he made it through.
After watching that replay, you look live at PJ Jacobsen, who has found his way over to the podium area where in just a few moments he'll be able to collect the trophy. But right now he still has the helmet on, thinking about the race that unfolded. With the mindset that he came in with, how rewarding will this be? Huge
rewarding to win an outright fight. And Matt, you can see he's already talking to his crew about where he was struggling at. Matt usually struggles on his starts as well, but man, he got a great start today. That was really good for him, and he got 20 points. PJ was able to get 5 back. I think it's huge for PJ to come in and win a straight-up battle.
When they came into the race today, that gap had closed down, and Matthew Skoltz, having won 6 times so far this season, he knew he had a little bit of a buffer, but he said it earlier today that it's not time to enjoy that buffer yet. There's still so much racing left in this championship. He knew he was going to have to fight.
Yeah, and he was fighting back. He actually kind of closed down a little bit there, but just ran out of time.
See Blake Davis, after finishing 3rd, able to enjoy a podium result for him. It is his 3rd of the season. Let's go back to Greg and Jason.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is brought to you by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
Back at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca as PJ Jacobsen makes his way into victory lane as the team congratulates him on a masterful race. You can see Ben Spees in the mix. 1998 70 Supersport champ Richie Alexander there as well. I love sliding that in.
He hates that, doesn't he?
Love it. Here's the results. Skoltz, Blake Davis, Jake Lewis. Like I said, Gerardo and Corey slipped back to 6th. We'll talk to him for tomorrow to find out what happened. Mesa, solid. Kayla also slipped back to 8th. And Tambourine, your top 10. Let's get to Hannah.
For PJ Jacobsen, you guys said you saw the bike moving around quite a bit, that rear spinning up, PJ. You made one heck of a pass on Matthew Skoltz there ultimately for this victory. What gave you the confidence, and how much patience did you have to exercise to make that pass where you did?
Yeah, I thought the pace was like extremely, really good, and we were like just tense and tense all the whole time. So honestly, it was, I feel like it was a really good race for both of us because I feel like we were just on the limit with the lap times. So it was good. And then I saw some weak points, and he has some stronger points than me, like most riders. But just learning a bunch from sitting behind him, and I was able to make that pass on him then. But then once I made the pass, I knew I'd try to put my head down and try to go away. But the grip was quite difficult at the end. I'm sure it was for him too, but it was hard. But I'm really happy about the race and stuff, so it was good. Just want to thank our sponsors: XPEL, Roller Die, Code 3, Elf, Avon Aero, Supply, AME, my whole side of the crew, Tom, Mickey. They did a great job on my side. It's great. Ducati, XPEL, the whole program. Rahal Ducati Moto is awesome. So it's a great program to be a part of. And yeah, we're just do some homework tonight and look forward to the race tomorrow.
Speaking of that homework, is there anywhere that you feel, whether it's bike or rider-wise, that you can make an improvement and see the race unfold a little bit differently tomorrow?
Yeah, for sure. We always go back, us riders, and look at the homework we need to do for tonight and watch the race and see some weak points and stuff. So try to go over that with my team, and we'll try to make those improvements tomorrow so we can have a bit of a better, stronger pace with some tenths per lap.
Congrats, PJ. Guys.
And that's the greatest thing about how we work here in MotoAmerica, having 2 races in a weekend and getting to go back and do some homework. But Jay, this was quite a performance, and of course you love seeing PJ going to work on Matthew Skoltz, who's with Hannah right now.
Incredibly strong start to the race for Matthew Skoltz. Matt, you led a lot of those laps. Take us through your mindset in those final laps after PJ gets by you. Where's your head?
Once he passed me, he opened up a little bit of a gap quickly. I didn't realize how good that thing gets off the corners, so I tried to brake and give him a bit of a bike length or two so I could try to drive up onto him, but he really punches out of the corners well. I mean, I managed to open up half a second gap, and one of the back markers went through the corkscrew right in front of me, and I had to roll off there, so that definitely hurt me a lot. But overall, PJ rode really well. You know, I think that he deserved that one. I tried to close up to him on the final lap into the second corner, and I just backed it in too much, and I ran out wide, and that was all that I had then. I just had to settle for second place. But overall, it sucks to finish second after winning 6 onto the trot, but I think we're going to come back stronger tomorrow, and we're ready to fight for first. But just thank you to the team. They've been working hard, gave me a really great package, and you know, I know that we lost 5 points today in the championship, and I'll try to get it back tomorrow. But overall, happy with how things went. You know, the pace was really good. I think we were quite some way from the group battling for third, so it is definitely myself and PJ out in the front there.
Congratulations, Matthew Skoltz, second place today, guys.
Obviously, it's disappointing for Skoltz, but for us and the way this championship is playing out, this super sport category is phenomenal.
Yeah, a lot of respect between these two guys there on the podium, especially after what happened a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, Matthew will come back swinging and see how he can get on tomorrow. Hannah.
Third podium of the season for Blake Davis. Blake, it's been a little while. We've seen you make some progress after a tough couple of last rounds. Really deep pack there for the battle in third. What gave you the upper hand today?
I was feeling really good. The Yamaha R6 is handling amazing, and you know, just I feel like I had a little bit more in me that race. Maybe I can hang on to PJ and Matt for a little bit longer tomorrow, but just made a few mistakes there at the beginning, and you know, other than that, the bike felt amazing. Thank you to Into Racing, Bobblehead Moto, Evan Brothers, KYT, Dionysi, Sunstar, everybody that helped me out. I know I'm forgetting a few, but thank you all so much.
Big weekend for Blake Davis. Can he keep the momentum rolling, guys?
Well, that's really the big deal, is that he knows he's got the pace to finish on the podium, and now if he can tomorrow close that gap, it'll be very interesting. Our coverage continues with Supersport Race number 1 post-race after this.
Our continue here behind the scenes on MotoAmerica Live Plus will continue as the riders have all now spoken their words, waiting for their turns to go up and collect their hardware. But Roger, so much respect between those top finishers.
Yeah, so much respect, and you can see PJ and Matt, they know it's going to come down to those two guys. You see them shaking hands, getting on the podium, and we're in for a treat. Those two, we're going to have battles like this all the way down to the last race of the year, and you know, they're both keeping tabs on each other, and they know that they're going to see what the other one's doing. PJ today got to follow Matt for a couple laps, pretty much the whole race. Matt got to follow PJ there toward the end, so they got to kind of pick up where they need to be better at tomorrow.
See PJ there, smiles from the top set, Matthew Skoltz. Knowing that there's some improvements that they can make, the team will go back overnight and they'll work on that. But to your point that you made earlier, he had a great start early on today. Certainly something that he's able to build on as they go back and look at the data overnight.
It's going to be huge. It's going to make his life easier throughout the year.
Post-race coverage will continue. Go back over to Greg and Jason.
Oh, heading up the hill to the Corkscrew, the famous corner here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. It's not perfect sunshine, it's broken clouds today, but enough heat in the track to give us a good race. And here's how it unfolded.
Yeah, let's have a look here as the two riders leading the championship that would finish first and second. They got down into turn 1 in the most important spot, first and second. You see PJ ran a little wide, opened the door for Matthew early on, and Matthew would take the lead for the majority of this race. You heard the pace was hot at the front. These two guys continue to trade blows as far as lap times go. Kayla Yakov made a bid for third against Corey Alexander. This is where it kind of started going back and forth here with Blake Davis. She made a small mistake, Greg, in turn 2 that really set her back. Late in the race, PJ Jacobsen makes a pass with about 3 to go, opens up a gap, and is able to beat Matthew Skoltz and gain those critical 5 points back in the championship, back to 23 points now going into tomorrow.
What a championship we have, and for PJ Jacobsen, his 4th win of the season. And we heard earlier that Matthew Schultz has got 6 himself. You haven't been to a MotoAmerica race? This is what happens when you win. You get to stand on top of the podium and celebrate with your teammates. Our coverage will continue from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca after this.
Continuing for you, the fans that are here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, as well as all of you joining around the world with us on MotoAmerica Live Plus. We are getting ready for the next race of the afternoon. At the top of the hour, it will be the Steel Commander Superbike race number 1. It is round number 6 in this 10th anniversary championship season for MotoAmerica. And I was just watching out the window here of our broadcast booth as the green flag is waving at pit exit. The 5-minute board is being shown. That means that these riders and these teams, they have the next couple of minutes to be able to exit pit lane for the siding lap, Roger, and be able to find their spot on the grid.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to this Superbike race here, how tight the title is. 4 riders within 9 points. You don't really see that usually in the Premier class. So many riders fight for the title. Cam Beaubier, home track, he's injured. He's back on pole position. It's going to be interesting to see if that heel, doing 1 or 2 laps, but we'll see what happens throughout the race. And rookie Sean Dillon Kelly, there's just so many storylines. You can go all the way down. Bobby Fong didn't qualify great, but we have seen his race pace throughout the weekend. He's able to do those laps consistently. Might not be down into the 22s though, but the race pace won't be that fast. Bobby seems like he's able to do what I would say the race pace, a lot of laps in a row.
For Cameron Beaubier, you mentioned him being back on the pole position, returning from injury. He fought through his broken heel when we were back at the Ridge and just able to do as much as possible, but he is able to do even more here this weekend as the riders make their way around and go back to Greg and Jason.
Back at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, what a crowd we have had here this weekend, and they just got to check out Supersport Race number 1 and a battle between our 2 championship leaders. And Jason, looking at this, you look at 2 riders. You talked about it earlier in the broadcast about when you're racing a superbike for so long and then you get to a Supersport machine, it's a little bit slower, it has a little bit more intent and more corner speed, but that's what we're seeing. We're seeing PJ Jacobsen, who won a superbike race last year. Matthew Schultz is a multi-time superbike race winner, and they're walking away with this championship.
Yeah, and you look at the young man that finished 3rd, and Blake Davis, never been on a superbike, but he's the next guy today that could try to move forward. I think the big thing for me is looking at the championship standings here in a moment. Who's going to come up and get in between these 2 guys that can change the outlook of our championship? Because you can see a 23-point lead there for PJ Jacobsen to make up, and Jake Lewis 122 points back. So Blake Davis is in 4th. There's still a battle there for that top 3, as Ty Scott didn't even get to race today. We'll see him up at the front of that second group tomorrow. But which one, Greg, who is going to be the person that can jam themselves in between Matthew Schultz and PJ Jacobsen? And let's not forget that PJ's got a couple of teammates that are fast, obviously, in Corey Alexander and Kayla Yakov. Will Blake Davis be able to help Matthew if needed on the other Yamaha? But right now, those 2 are just in a class on their own.
And with the races we have remaining in this season, too, Jay, there's 7 races remaining in Supersport. I think really, as those riders that are in 3rd, obviously in the championship and on down, the focus now has to be race results and race finishes, because where you are in the championship, unless you have some type of a 3rd place bonus or 5th place bonus wrapped up in there, it's kind of irrelevant at this point, don't you think?
Yeah, and you got to start to think, where we're headed to next. After Laguna, we go to Mid-Ohio. A lot of these kids haven't seen that place unless they've got to go there and ride on a track day. So, again, the guys with experience are going to shine through. The Jake Lewises, Corey Alexanders, they've been to these places in the past. So, yeah, who's going to jump up?
Well, WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca had Supersport Race number 1, and it was an entertaining race. And PJ Jacobsen able to close down on the championship, another 5 valuable points. We get to do it again one more time, and we hope that you're going to join us for Supersport Race number 2. For Hannah and Jason, I'm Greg. We'll see you tomorrow.
Continuing here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, looking down at the exit of pit lane, the 1-minute board now being shown. I'm looking out at the grid. It looks like it is a packed grid out there today, Roger.
Yeah, it's packed, and the temperatures, you can tell. It seems like a perfect day out there. for all these riders, and right now, you know, they kind of, it's when the nerves really start kicking in when you're sitting there on the grid. You're hoping you and your team did the homework. Hope you got that bike set up where you want it to be. It's going to be a long race. You're talking about 20 laps around here. It's just such a long time. You can see now just the focus. Look at Cam Beaubier. He's locked in.
He's locked in on that pole position, but it wasn't just a pole position. It wasn't just a resurgence in getting himself back up to the head of the grill. It was also coming with a track record pace, a new lap time track record, 122.556 for Cameron Beaubier.
And not only that, the interview after the qualifying where he said he felt like he was riding like himself. And I think that's it's a little bit scary for the competition when he's able to come in here and do that. Mid 22 lap time, and then, you know, just this today after yesterday, it just seems like he said he was back to himself. The foot's not bothering him. He can ride the way he wants. We see Cameron's track record here at this track. He's gonna be tough to beat, but 20 laps is a long time.
Another thing that's scary for the competition was a point that Beaubier actually brought up after qualifying, was the fact that he feels like Bobby Fong maybe has the best outright race pace in terms of consistency from everybody else in the Superbike field.
Yeah, and Bobby just all weekend he hasn't been at the very top spot, but he's inside that top 5 every session. Not the outright lap, but he's just able to reel those laps off. Sean Dillon Kelly's been impressive this week. Cam Peterson's always in there, and Josh Herron. He's been fast this weekend as well. So it's just really hard to tell, you know, which guy can do it. And Jake Gagne, what can he do coming from 8th on the grid? And then Loris Baz qualifying not where he wanted to qualify, down in 9th. So there's going to be some guys pushing hard early on in this race to try to make up a couple points. Brendan Posh is great qualifying for him there in 6th. So we're going to find out before long who did their homework, but it's going to be a long race around here. And we're going to see what happens there after 20 laps. You also got to think about tire wear at a 20-lap race as well on these big Superbikes is going to come into play.
See Xavi Flores out there on the grid being interviewed right now, coming off of a podium finish that he was able to get back at the Ridge and put himself in the history books as being the first rider in the world to earn a podium position in 6 different national championships. With that, I'm going to send it down to a longtime friend of WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca and Gordon McCall.
MotoAmerica is